Everybody's heard of dopamine. Most people just think of it, if you look it up or whatever, as the feel good chemical in our body. But it's responsible for so much more. You know, dopamine, most of it's made in our liver and our kidneys, and it travels on the vagus nerve to the brain, and it's stored in these little sacs in the hypothalamus.
Sean, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you very much.
Let's dive into it. Tell me about dopamine and this important neurochemical. How do you define it?
Sure. Everybody's heard of dopamine. Most people just think of it, if you look it up or whatever, as the feel good chemical in our body. But it's responsible for so much more. And so I have a doctor friend that I collaborate with, and I started picking his brain last summer. And man, I just found out so much about it. Dopamine, most of it's made in our liver and our kidneys, and it travels on the vagus nerve to the brain, and it's stored in these little sacs in the hypothalamus. And what's happening with almost everyone's dopamine, especially in America, because the food regimen is just so horrible, is we're not getting enough produced in our body, and then it's leaking out of those sacs in the brain for different reasons. And then when it's transported to different parts of the body, it's leaking out of the neuronal pathways. And so I've been studying chemicals in foods for about 17 years because I wrote cancer prevention books, and I help people quit smoking, and I do all these things. And so I'm like an ingredients expert. And so people will show me the ingredients on something. They'll take a picture and text it to me or whatever, and they're like, "Is this okay, Sean?" And so I can scan through it real quick. I'm like, look for something without the MSG or without the aspartame, and I start naming stuff. So all of these toxins are draining and ruining our dopamine creation, supply, and transportation. It's like the three-legged stool, and if that's your stool and you need the dopamine, and you're sitting on this wobbly stool at the bar, you're gonna fall over. That's brain fog. That's lack of motivation. That's restless sleep. That's lack of the critical thinking skills, all the motor skills, muscle recovery. It's just so many things that dopamine does for us, and there's so many things that can mess it up. So that's what I've been getting into. Wrote my book about. Pushing, a health course now this summer out with the doctor so we can help people with this.
And so it really does all start with diet, but what are some other things that would perhaps mess up the production of dopamine in the kidneys?
Yeah, so your kidneys, of course, are a filter organ. So the good gut bacteria is so important. So we're supposed to have 85% good gut bacteria. It's called flora, 15% bad. And a lot of people don't know that. The bad bacteria, it helps us recognize other bad bacteria and build immunity to it. Well, let's say, doctors in America are very apt to prescribe antibiotics for almost anything. And so let's say we just go to the doctor and we've got a head cold that's starting to go to our chest. We've got a bad sore throat or whatever we've got, symptoms of sickness. They'll look at it a lot of times and they assume that antibiotics will help. But if it's viral, antibiotics aren't going to help. In fact, they'll hurt. And so when you prescribe antibiotics, it wipes out all of your gut bacteria, all of it, the good and the bad. That's why you get diarrhea a lot when you're on a full round of antibiotics for 7 or 10 days. You're wiped out. So you're wiping out the whole microbiome, the entire environment in your gut. When you do that, your body's not retaining any nutrients. So if your kidneys and liver are not getting any nutrients or barely any, they are not going to create dopamine, or they're barely going to create any at all. And so that's the gut environment. And so we're not eating probiotics and enzymes and superfoods and the nutrient dense foods because so much of what we eat is processed, and then so much there's chemicals added in. And a lot of people think they're eating healthy, like, I'll get a salad, oh, we're going to McDonald's, all right, I'll get a salad. Well, you're not eating healthy. Because those vegetables are sprayed with pesticides. So, you start eating pesticides, those are other chemicals. So the chemicals are just, the chemicals, number one destroyer of our good gut bacteria and our dopamine supply.
And then you add on top of that all the other things that are going on in modern day society. And so what would you recommend that people what is like a quick checklist that they could do to start to get this back in order?
Yeah, if you got a piece of paper, write this down, because a lot of people ask me this when they find out, that I've been doing research on holistic health for a long time. And so number one, I'd say gluten, because, and it's mainly bread, because in America we preserve the bread so it'll last, a week or 2 weeks in your packaging, right? It's soft for weeks. Bagels, they're the worst. So all of the emulsifiers and the foaming agents and everything that keeps it soft in the gluten is absolutely horrible for your gut. And it causes constipation, which is like the driving force of inflammation, which is the driving force, the catapult of all disease and disorders, inflammation, chronic inflammation. So gluten, number one, because it makes you constipated and it contains a bunch of chemicals. Number two, I'd say tap water, because people underestimate the destruction coming from the fluoride in tap water, the chlorine. They got to clean it, right? Mm-hmm. It's a blessing, but it's a double-edged sword, because we have tap water in America you can drink without getting sick right away. But is that true? No, because they don't filter everything. You got other people's medications, artificial sweeteners. It's hard to believe. It's hard to get your head wrapped around it, but this is what you're getting from tap water. Parasites, you can get all kinds of stuff. You got to have a good filter on that. So gluten, tap water. Next, I'd say aspartame, the most evil artificial sweetener in the world. You may have heard bad things. They're all right. It screws up your central nervous system and drives stress out the roof, stress and anxiety, which drains all of your dopamine. You're in fight or flight mode all freaking day. And then MSG, monosodium glutamate, which I got to eat 3 days ago. Somebody made some salmon, the host of the house I was in, and she coated it with some pre-made, spicy fish shake. She put it all over the top, and I didn't think nothing of it. And I'm eating. I love salmon. I eat a lot. And I said it was a little extra spicy. And I was like, hey, what'd you spice this up with? She's a real good cook. I thought she used her own stuff, but we were out of town. It's MSG. And man, I didn't sleep good at all. It messes with my head, nightmares, dehydration, headache, waking up a bunch. So monosodium glutamate is a concentrated salt, just like other nitrates that are in like hot dogs and deli meats and stuff. So the nitrates and the MSG, the concentrated salts, real bad for your brain, real bad for your digestive tract, dehydrates you. So that's 4. And then I'd say chemicals in the house are really bad. So if you're using Febreze and Lysol and you got Glade plugins in the wall, I remember going to the bank one time and I could not even sit in the woman's office to fill out some forms because she had a Glade plug-in, and I'm just so sensitive to it now. And you breathe that stuff in and you might as well just be breathing in bug spray. It's just so bad. So that top 5 right there, and I could go on all day.
How about like top 5 superfoods?
Superfoods are pretty easy. So superfoods, just nutrient-dense foods. I would start off, since it's summer, I'd say watermelon, because that's way up there, and that's a dopamine booster, and it's clean, and they don't GMO it. You're not getting pesticides on it because it's got to stick outside. It's not part of the dirty dozen that absorbs pesticides, so you don't have to look for organic or whatever. Get watermelon. They even have watermelon juice, like at Whole Foods and Sprouts. It's just pure, just straight watermelon. It's really good for you. It's hydrating. Beets are supposed to be really high. So if you don't eat beets a lot, or you don't want to eat beets, they have beet root powder or beet juice. I bought some beet and orange juice mix. It was pretty good. Rinse your vitamins down with that. The leafy greens, but they're going to have to be organic. And if you don't eat enough, or you cook them to death, one easy way is put it in a smoothie. You can't even taste them. So you make a smoothie with banana and some nice protein, mix or whatever you've got, and you throw a bunch of greens in there. I do frozen kale, and then I do fresh spinach, and I put it in the smoothie. Turns green. It looks crazy weird, but you can't taste it at all. And if you want it sweeter, just put like some dates in there or just some fruit. That sweetens it up. Supplement wise, you can get probiotics. I like tinctures because I don't want to swallow a bunch of plastic, capsules, veggie capsules. So I'd get tinctures, but probiotics, L-theanine, Mucuna purines that I always talk about because it's in my natural remedy invention products. Mucuna purines is the most potent dopamine booster on the planet. The most potent one. It's just a tropical bean that grows in like China and Brazil and India, and they grind up the roots and they take the skin off, the coating off. It's like a beautiful purple velvety looking bean. It's crazy looking, and it's Ayurvedic medicine. They've been using it forever. So those are some great superfoods. And then salmon is actually a superfood because it's so loaded with omega-3s and the good fats that you're getting. Omega-3s are great for brain health because all the seed oils have stripped that, all the processed seed oils, they've stripped out the omega-3s and you're just getting omega-6s. So you're loaded up, you're heavy loaded with omega-6, and without the 3s, it causes chronic inflammation. So when we load back up with the 3s, we get that balance and we get the better brain health and the brain fog starts to go away and the inflammation.
So let's just say that we've taken care of our nutrition and our hydration. Now let's move on to the stuff that messes up the brain chemistry. What are some things that you're seeing today that's wreaking havoc on the system?
It's funny, but it's emotional and social, and it's your mental well-being. So I have this new mantra. Well, I've been working it for about 2 years, but it's called operate on a high frequency. And what I mean is you want to avoid negative energy, or I call it gross energy. When you mix with negative energy, whether it's the bad news, like the fake news on the big media, or it's just somebody who wants to debate you about something stupid you can't do anything about, or it's somebody criticizing what you do because they're jealous or they don't like it, or it's just negative energy. You see people fighting around you, or in the parking lot or something like that. Anywhere there's a bunch of negative energy, if you mix with it or worry about it or let it bounce around in your head too long, you're expending your dopamine. So that inner turmoil is expending dopamine, and a lot of it. So the more you spend on that, the less you're going to spend on the stuff you love. And when we're drained on dopamine, you lose all ability to do everything you want to do. You lose energy, you lose focus, you lose positive mentality. So I studied self-opinion as a primary motivation in learning. I got a master's degree in education, and I wrote thesis paper after thesis paper. If they let me, I kept writing on it. Self-opinion, when we have a low self-opinion, when we're kicking ourselves for doing something stupid, or we're around negative people and we become negative, we just start whining and complaining about everything because they are. You get a lower self-opinion, and it takes away from your drive to get things done and do things that you love doing. So all of that negative, it's a mental game. And I play what I call catch and release. So you acknowledge it because there's a lot of humans around us and you don't want to be rude. You're not going to just say, oh, I'm not listening to you. I'm a people person. So I'll listen for, I'll give them time of day for just a few seconds or a minute. And I'll say, interesting, and then I'll say, yeah, I'm sorry that's bugging you so bad. But, when I get something bugs me like that, what I do, and then I just say something positive that I'm doing, and then I'm done, and then I'm out.
Yeah.
I either exit the scene, exit the conversation, or if they want to start talking positive, I'll stick around for a little bit, so I switch the gear on them.
Got it. That's super powerful. Because there is a lot of stuff out there that can really knock us off course And back to what are some just natural positive things other than nutrition that people can do to get dopamine going in their brain?
Yeah, a lot of people, like, our country is so overweight, and so sick with all kinds of preventable illnesses. Um, People underestimate the power of exercise, or they don't want to do it because they look at it as this big daunting task to engage and to do and all that with call the cardio. Or you go to the gym and all these people they've been working out for 2 hours. They're there when you get there. They're there when you leave. Forget about everybody else. So I did a podcast, and it was about 3 things to concentrate on when you exercise, and when you plan for it, is simple, safe, and fun. Simple, safe, and fun. And so under that umbrella, you only need like 20 minutes. 15, 20 minutes a day is very good. Just a brisk walk is good. Jogging, playing hoop with your kids, whatever. 15, 20 minutes. But you want to be safe, because injury is going to expend a lot of dopamine also.
Mm-hmm.
Injuries drain your dopamine mentally and physically, because it's frustrating and you're injured. And then fun. So I always say, if you're going to exercise alone, get your earbuds and download your favorite music, because that's super inspirational, or a good podcast. So, use technology to your advantage. And then there's all these wearable devices, the Fitbit or the heart rate variability app, and so there's all these cool apps that you can use now to kind of track your progress and go, oh man, I worked out 20 minutes every day except for that day. And I didn't get a good workout in the next day. You can look back, and so you can kind of track it. I had a girlfriend for a long time, and she was a massage therapist, and she got me into a lot of cool stuff. She would always walk after we ate. Always went for a nice long walk after we ate. At first I was annoyed, and then I was like, hey, I like this. And now I've read about it. It's very good for you. And then she always had the Fitbit tracking the steps. We went to the fun park. She's like, we've walked 8,000 steps. I'm like, what? So it was fun. It just makes it fun. And you can set goals, and you can set standards for yourself, but simple, safe, and fun exercise.
From what I understand, dopamine is about not only motivation and reward. It's more about motivation than the reward per se. So is it in the pursuit of things? It's in the pursuit of things, if I understand, that dopamine levels get to the highest. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's funny you said that, because my podcast this morning was called Motivation, and I look stuff up every time. I know a bunch of cool info, but before every podcast I look stuff up, because there's new stuff to learn all the time. Student for life. And so I looked it up, and yes. So let's say I do set a new little standard for working out, right? And then I set a new standard for, hey, I'm going to have a really good, organic smoothie after my workout as a reward. Well, when you set that stuff up and then you download, and you're like, oh man, I'm going to download live versions of some songs I know, because I'm kind of sick of my music. And you find another way, to find stuff you love doing, but if you change it up. When you do that and it's all set, that's exciting, and your dopamine goes up. So now you're more motivated, because let's say you're addicted to chocolate and you love chocolate cake. Well, when you order chocolate cake at the restaurant, your dopamine goes up. When the waiter's bringing it to the table, your dopamine goes up. When you cut it with your fork, your dopamine goes up. You haven't even tasted it yet. And that's why you see smokers. I used to make fun of this when I was teaching people to quit smoking. Smokers, they love the fix from nicotine. Fix, but the crash is bad.
Yeah.
But if you notice, all smokers do this. So smokers, when it's about time to smoke, they got the pack, and they pack the pack. They pack the pack, right? Then they pull the cigarette out. Their dopamine's going up little by little. They take the cigarette out. Dopamine goes up. They don't smoke it right away. Now they'll pack the cigarette. They'll pack it like on the back of their hand. You ever seen that?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
They're milking the dopamine because they know what's coming. They know the rush is coming. And then they'll put it here. They'll lick it and stick it and let it hang and talk. and it's just hanging out their mouth and they're talking or whatever, it's more of a dopamine rush. So we need to do that in a healthy way. Instead of having a crappy habit that jacks up your dopamine real high, and then you have the crash, and then that's the power of addiction is you're going back, because you can quit almost any addiction by just boosting your dopamine naturally, but you got to have a powerful boost. You're not going to just eat a piece of watermelon and go, oh, I don't need a cigarette.
Mm-hmm.
But if you get Mucuna Purians, you just buy it on Amazon. You buy Mucuna Purians, okay, the little capsules, and you take 2 capsules, you're not going to crave a cigarette for 3 hours. And that's just a fact. That's science, and that's experience. Because when I invented my drinks called Crave Kicker, I was at a bar with a chronic smoker, and he was about to smoke. And I said, hold on, dude. I got some drinks I invented in the car. They got Mucuna Purians. I told him all about it. I said, will you just drink a drink right now? It's natural, non-addictive, and see how long you can go without a cigarette? He goes, yeah. He goes, let's wait another half hour till I'm really craving it bad. I said, sure. We were watching fights. We were going to be there for 3 hours. So he waits. He drinks my drink. Didn't even think about cigarettes. Like an hour and a half later, he goes, I totally forgot that I was even going to have a cigarette, dude. He was like, that really works. So if you get that big boost naturally and there's no crash, it just tapers off, you know? It just tapers off. So there's no downtime. There's no punishment for a good natural dopamine boost.
And that's true. It's I tell people all the time that addiction is not a moral issue. It's a dopamine and neurotransmitter issue. And I think it's all about raising our overall dopamine threshold. Of course, I don't think that happens, like, it doesn't change overnight. But like you said, if we do it in these natural ways instead of these easy come crashes that are going to lower the threshold, what do you think about all that?
Yeah, I like that word threshold. That's great, because what's happening is if you're an alcoholic, your dopamine's going way up, right? And it's going way down. Yeah. But it's just like a diabetic with sugar, okay? The more dopamine, the more you jack up your dopamine with an artificial stimulant or a drug, the less your liver and kidneys are going to produce it until they get that drug. So the threshold, like you're saying, is going way down. So let's say I want to quit smoking and I try and go cold turkey, or quit drinking alcohol and I go cold turkey. It's going to be super hard, not because I'm addicted to nicotine or alcohol, not even because I just feel bad. It's because I can't get my dopamine up. So if my girlfriend wants to have sex, or I got a job interview coming up, a big one, and I want it, I feel like I can't perform. And I can't figure out why. And that's why you kick yourself. Like you said, the self-esteem, the morals and ethics seem to, you're kicking yourself for the addiction, but really it's just because you feel like a servant to your addiction. You've been made a servant, that bows down to your addiction, and it wrecks your self-opinion. Mm-hmm. But really, it's just like you said, it's low dopamine. Low self-esteem and low dopamine are running right next to each other. That's all you need. Get sick or get injured, and see how you feel about all the cool stuff you've been doing. All of a sudden, you're not so sure about it, or you're just like, I don't know if I'm going to keep doing that. Just eat a bunch of junk food, and the next morning you're like, I don't know, man. Maybe I'm not going to write this book. No, it's not about what you were doing. It's you don't feel like it, and you have no confidence in it because the dopamine's wrecked. And the dopamine's the mother of of all hormones, the epinephrine, the oxytocin, you can look up serotonin, all of these things, and they'll tell you different functions for them. But really, dopamine's the mother of it all. And I asked the integrative medicine MD specialist about this, so I'm not doing any guesswork on dopamine.
And where did this journey start for you when you ended up wanting to focus on dopamine?
So it's funny, I went in 2010 when I met the massage therapist's girlfriend. She knew her friend was first cousins with David Wolfe, Wolfe, the herbalist. He's a raw foodist. He travels the planet. He explores every kind of superfood there is. He does health seminars, and he wrote some best-selling books, Eating for Beauty or something like that. So he was talking about mucuna pruriens. That was one of the superfoods he covered for about 15 minutes. And at the end of it, he said, smokers like this because it helps them quit smoking. And I'm like, oh, and I'm taking notes, right? So I put a nutrition section in the back of my quit smoking book. This is like by 2014, I got published, double published. And I put it in the back of that book and I talked about it. A couple years later, I made a drink with it in it, and I called it Crave Kicker. And it boosts dopamine because I studied dopamine then, and I found out that smokers have a major issue with dopamine levels. So I kept focusing on smokers. I was going to help smokers. My grandfather smoked himself to death, had lung cancer. But smokers are hard to get through to because they've been scammed by the patch and the gum and all that crap, and it's just so hard to get through to, and a lot of them don't want to quit. They don't know how. So when I made the gum, I turned the drinks into gum, dopamine gum. And when I met this doctor friend about 2 years ago up here in Maryland, he said, you know, that gum would help people with anxiety, with depression. He goes, I can help people exhaust their dopamine during the day and they'll sleep better. I'll help people with stress and hypertension. He goes, I can sell this on a lot of fronts. Long muscle recovery. He had all of these. I was like, what? And I knew a little bit about it. And then I was like, what? So this opens up all kinds of doors for me. And so then I was writing an ebook to go with the gum. And I was like, you know what? I'm just going to turn that into a whole book. And he knew some publishers because he wanted to write a book. He's never written one. He's like, will you help me write a book? I said, sure. So we authored this one together, the Dopamine Revolution. And it came out in March, 315 pages.
Wow.
And I just dug deep into it. I love doing research, and I dug into it. And now I'm almost like a dopamine expert, even though I'm not a doctor or a nutritionist. Because of all the chemicals I've studied, he's telling me, I pick his brain, he's telling me, yes, that affects this. Yes, that affects that, like the questions you were asking me. And so now I've learned, I know all of the bad stuff that screws it up. And now I've studied superfoods and supplements that boost it. So I'm kind of working both ends so I can, just teach people the rocket ship strategy.
What are some personal changes you experienced since you've really dug deep into this stuff?
Well, I quit some habits and that were kind of, brain fogging me a little bit. And I cleaned up my food intake. I'm on like a whole foods only kick this summer. It's really hard because nothing processed. I figured out I can't keep anything in my pantry because it's all processed some way or another, even if it's organic. I'm like, I don't even go in the pantry right now. But I've always been like a multitasker, and I learned how to learn in grad school because I got an education degree. And now I can think on my feet better. And when I get opportunities to advance something that I love, I'm on it like that. Like used to be, I'd kind of be like, oh, that's a good idea. Let me take a note. Had to think about it later. Now it's like Johnny on the spot. Even like during my podcast, I'll say something and I'll go, I'm a tangent on that right now. And I can just go off and it's really fun. And I'm hyped all day. Like I'm not hyperactive, but like I am right now, this is how I am all the time. It doesn't wear off. I mean, I could sit and watch TV. I'll watch, like Alone, the Survivor show for an hour or whatever. I'm like everybody else. But if the phone rings or, you're like, hey, can you do a podcast in 2 hours? I'm not like, well, I had a really busy morning, man. Maybe, tomorrow would be better for me. No, like I said today, I'm like, yeah, let's go. Because I feel amped all the time. And it's not just me. I have some decent genetics from my dad and some smarts from moms. But It's how I'm eating, and it's my mentality and focusing on functioning on this high frequency, avoiding the gross energy, stay high frequency. And my metaphor on it is a radio dial, the old school. You had to dial the radio and get it fine tuned, right? Well, if you were off like 1/10, if your radio station was 88.9 and you were at 88.8, you had some static, right? That's life. The negative energy, the bad food, the junk medicine, and the negative energy, whether it's from TV or people or whatever it's coming from, it's all static. So you got to minimize it, cut it out, and then surround yourself with other people that are functioning on a high frequency. That's why I'm magnating towards my doctor friend, towards you, towards my publishers. They're smart. Towards my mom, she's great at looking, and my older sister's a lawyer. She's really good at objectively criticizing something. She's like, Sean, you should put music at the beginning and the end of your podcast. I'm like, yeah. And I want something happy, so I got a police song at the beginning and the next police song at the end from my first favorite Zenyatta Mandata album. And it just makes me crack up and smile. So I talk through it, So yeah, it's just, there's so many factors, and you have so much control. You really have way more control than you think over all of this.
That's special. I've battled a lot of different addictions in my life, like a lot of people.
Yeah.
It used to be pills. It used to be pills and alcohol for me. I got off
Yep.
pills. I got off alcohol. I got off, I think it was even ecstasy at one point.
Yep.
And then it kind of transitioned. It's always transitioning in my life. And then, I got off alcohol. I got off porn.
Yep.
And then recently, it's been more coffee, and energy drinks.
Sure. Right.
It's out there. Sugar is now my thing.
Yeah. So yeah, sugar is my crutch. I love creamer in my coffee. So what I did for the Whole Foods thing this summer, my only cheat is creamer, but I cut back on it. So what I did was, first thing in the morning, I put creamer in my coffee because I love it, and it's just happy times. Yeah, and then I love coffee. So you can drink up to like 300 milligrams of coffee in a day, and it's not bad for you. Okay, if you're not loading it up with sugar and creamer.
Yeah.
1 cup of coffee is about 80 milligrams. So I don't like black coffee, but I went through a period where I drank black coffee in grad school. And so I'm like, okay, screw it. I'm just going to drink some black coffee later on in the day. So I found if I keep it really cold, then it tastes decent. I like the taste of the beans, and I'm just like, suffer a little. Cool. I want my coffee, and I drink my black coffee. I sip on it. And so that's what you got to do. You got to look at your crutches, and I call it replace and replenish. You know what I mean? So another good one my sister showed me. So you go out to a bar. If you don't want to drink, or you're like me, I'm a lightweight. I can have 2 drinks. I got a hangover in an hour. Can't drink anymore. I can only have like 1 quality drink, and that's it. So if you go out to a bar, she's like, she can't, same thing happens to her. So what she does, she's like club soda with 2 limes or, some flavor and whatever. And it's great because it's fizzy, and they give it to you in a nice glass with a lime or a lemon. It looks like a drink. It's fizzy like soda, no sugar. So you got to find treats that are substitutes and then add in healthy stuff. So like with the coffee in the morning, I buy the mushroom coffees. I add MCT oil. I buy organic coffee because if it's not organic, you're probably drinking pesticides. Mm-hmm. If you're using coffee filters and they're white, you're drinking bleach. So what you want to do is either clean up your habit the best you can or totally replace it. Go, you know what? I want to quit vaping. What do I do? Okay, this guy on a podcast said Mucuna pruriens. What's that? I'm going to look it up. MUCUNA. Look it up. Google it. Amazon it. MUC, like Hakuna Matata. Mucuna. And you just go. I mean, I don't want to support Amazon. He's rich enough, but it really doesn't matter at this point. So if you want if you want the convenience, if you want it now and you don't want to go shopping at all the health food stores and pay even more, screw it. The guy's worth 500 billion. What does it matter if he's worth 600 billion next year?
Right.
So you order what you need. It's your health. It's your vitality. Stop worrying about other people. Get what you got to get and get it in your body as soon as you can. The healthy stuff, because the more you carve and mold, think of yourself as like a sculpture. If you're just this ugly piece of wood with a head and a body, you're like, hey, look at me. And everybody's like, you're a piece of wood. But you keep carving and you're like, oh man, you did the eyes really good on that. Yeah. You start getting compliments. You start working out just a little bit more. You find a really cool exercise that's safe, simple, and fun. And all of a sudden somebody goes, oh, you're looking a little buff. Buy a new shirt. Sometimes you just buy one new piece of clothing and it makes you look good and you've been working out, or it makes you work out. Like the dopamine thing we were talking about. Shoot, if I got a new shirt coming from Amazon, guess what I do? I work out harder. I work out harder that day or the 2 days coming because I'm like, I'm going to wear that to the bar. I'm going to look a little bit better because you can get your swall on,
That's awesome. And I think the idea of neuroplasticity too is that we can shape and mold our brain and our nervous system, just like we can carve that. And once I realized that, my life changed because I stopped feeling sorry for myself, started getting up on my ass and doing things because I realized, yeah, it really is under my control. We have a lot more control than we think we do in our lives, even with, and
big time. Yeah, because you control most of your environment by how you react to everything. Because people are like, I can't control my environment. I'm at work. There's a bunch of jerks there. No, that doesn't matter. It actually doesn't matter very much at all. Now, if your boss is a jerk, that's, he's down your throat. Maybe you want to switch jobs or whatever. But you can control it because you can laugh at it and you can play catch and release, like I said. You can turn it positive and you can exit it with your brain. Physically, you get out of there as quick as you can, but, out of the room or the environment. But it's all how much we let it rattle around in our brain. And I live by metaphors. I did a metaphor on this. So you ever played pinball? Remember the old pinball machines?
Yeah.
Okay. So any negative thought or a problem or a crisis is the ball in the pinball machine. Okay. So when you pull the thing back and you launch it and it goes in and the game starts, that's the problem. That's the negative thought. That's the issue that somebody or something put in your head, right? Now it's going to bang around when it bangs on the bumpers and it's making noise and the lights are going off and the bells and it's making a bunch of noise. That's you thinking about it too much. Now, what do we do after that? When you play pinball, you work the flippers. Now, the better you work the flippers, the ball doesn't go down the chute. It keeps going back and you're scoring more points and banging it around, right? That's the problem. You're wasting time trying to work it out in your head and saying, coulda, shoulda, woulda. I should have said this to him. Next time he brings that up, man, I'm saying this. Shut up. Shut your head up, man. Let go of the flippers. You're keeping the problem going. You're keeping the game and the white noise in your brain going by hitting the flippers. If you let go of the flippers, the ball's going to bang around a couple more times, go down the chute, and it's over. Game over. That's how you got to treat these stupid issues that we bang around in our head. If it's negative energy, don't give it any fuel. And half the time, if you don't get into it in the emotional state, the solution's simple as hell. You think of the solution when the dust settles and it clears, You don't run around in the yard trying to fix the yard during the hurricane. As soon as it clears, you're like, oh, the only thing I got to fix is the shed.
Yeah.
So you got to let the dust clear and stop feeding fuel to the issues in your head, because that's what we do. We all do it.
Yeah, and I've needed the reminder lately, so I've appreciate that a lot. And
yeah,
Yeah, I think I like to keep these podcasts short and sweet. So I think
Yep.
let us know a little bit about how people can reach out to you and a few things you would like listeners to know.
All right. Thanks. So I do a podcast every day. I shoot it out to YouTube, Brighteon, Mike Adams on Natural News. I shoot it out on Brighteon, like the word bright, EON, and it's called the Dopamine Revolution. And so the dopamine, that's my book title, that's my podcast title, and I'm going to do all things dopamine probably forever now because it's just so much. I could work it forever, and I love it. So I'm going to work that. And by just looking that up and listening to my podcast, you're going to find everything else that I'm trying to offer the world. I got a couple of health courses coming out, I told you, and they're going to have to do with anxiety or weight loss because they're both in the same field as far as us consuming toxins that screw it up and screw up our control of it. And so my website's thedopaminerevolution.com. And then I have my health coaching is Sean D. Cohen, healthcoaching.com. My name's spelled SEAN, D for David, COHEN, healthcoaching.com. I'm still developing that. I got some people working on it for me, but the course is going to be phenomenal. And then I'm developing a course for my doctor friend and doing most of the writing for that. That's going to be incredible because he's going to do urine or blood analysis and get all your vitals and review it with you on like a Zoom meeting. So really, that's going to be a whole field that I can't do, that I can't really engage. But he's going to do that. But it's going to be a springboard from everything I'm doing now. So I'm kind of giving him all my bare basics, and then he's taking it and running with it. So that's going to be really cool.
That's fantastic. I'll put all of that in the show notes so you can reach out to Sean so you can get his book and support this mission. What an important mission. We appreciate you coming on, Sean. And
thanks a lot.
Just want to give you the last word for the listeners.
Last word. All right. So you have an act, okay? So everybody, and I don't mean act in a bad way, like pretentious. I mean, your life is an act. You have all of these skills and some cool stuff that you do. And it's like a high wire act. So if you went to the circus and you saw somebody on a unicycle, she was juggling fire, singing a song on a unicycle on a high wire, you go, that's worth the price of admission right there, right? Well, she's working that every day. She's practicing it. She's doing it. She's smiling. She's having fun. That's our lives, so everybody's special, whether you're a school teacher or a firefighter or whatever. So if you eat clean and you supplement and you boost your dopamine naturally and get off of these crutches, these habits, then your act becomes glorious and it becomes effortless. And now you become Michael Jordan dunking the basketball. It's the grace of it all that makes it so beautiful. Because Michael Jordan made it look easy, He dribbled between the legs twice, do a spin move. All of a sudden, he's jumping and smiling, and ain't nobody could touch it. And he just dunk it and then just run down the court. He wasn't showing off. It was just like, whoa. And the grace of that, the beauty of that, we all have that. We all have that act. And that's what you want to fuel. Because you don't know where it's going to go. You don't know how many people are going to love it and notice it and vibrate towards it. And it's the ripple effect. And the more you fuel that, the wider those ripples go out. The more people appreciate it and listen. And the last thing I'll say is stop trying to help people because people don't listen. You know what people do? They look for a good model. So you want to model what you want to help people with, do it yourself very well. Because when people model something very well, okay, if I want to improve something like at the gym or something, I don't look at the super bodybuilder guy. I look for somebody about my age, maybe a little older, who's a little bit more defined, something I can work towards, and I see what is he doing? Oh, he's doing some of that, some of that. I might even ask him a question and say, hey man, do you Eat clean. What do you eat? Or, what supplements do you take? It's modeling, and that's what we are apt to accept and learn from and want to take on to adapt and adopt. Somebody just tells you what to do. Nobody listens, man. You can say, don't do that. I ran my own business, and man, you don't do that. You can end up going bankrupt. They'll do it anyway. They'll do it and fail, and then they'll go, oh, somebody told me about that. I should have never done that. So model it, walk the walk, and then people notice, and then they ask you questions. Oh man, you look good today, man. What are you? You're really positive lately. What's up? And then you share. Yeah.
Fantastic message. Thank you for that wisdom. Stop trying to persuade people, embody it, and let them model you.
Yeah, embody. I love it.
Fantastic. Everyone have an awesome rest today.